Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the licence panel hearing this morning. This meeting is taking place face-to-face at Huddersfield Town Hall, but is also webcast live for people to watch it outside of the building. So let's start with a round of introductions. My name's Councillor Amanda Pinnock. I'm the chair of the Licence and Safety Committee and panel. I'll move over to my colleague, Councillor Davies.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Paola Davies. I'm on the panel today.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name is Adam Gregg, Councillor for the Lindley Ward on the panel. Thank you.
Council's legal representative.
Good morning, Tahir Hanif.
Licensing officer.
I'm Jordan Barrett. I'm the licensing officer for Kirklees Council.
The applicant.
Good morning, Jafar Abbas.
And we have some objectors. We have Mark Chapman from Environmental Health.
Mark Chapman, Environmental Health.
We also have some written objectors, and I will address those later on, but we have objections from Councillor Khan and Councillor Mather. I understand that the applicant also has a representative, so can I ask the representative please to identify yourself?
Good morning, my name is Mohammed Imran, representing Jafar Abbas.
Thank you. So we'll begin by going through the council agenda for this morning. So first of all, a site visit took place at Gordon and Frank's at 331 Wakefield Road, Denbydale, Huddersfield. Next, minutes of the previous meeting that took place on the 22nd of December. I was at that meeting. Councillor Gregg, I believe you were at that meeting too?
Yes, I was, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Davies? You were at that meeting. Are we in agreement that's a true record of what happened? Thank you. Any interest to declare, Councillor Davies?
No, Chair.
Admissions of the public. This meeting is held in public and is also webcast live. Any deputations or petitions? Any questions from members of the public? Okay, we'll go straight into the first application this morning, and it's an application for a full variation of the premises licence in respect of Bargain Local, situated at 335 Lees Road, Huddersfield, HD2 1YB. Can I ask, please, the licence officer to outline the application this morning?
Thank you, Chair. On the 17th of January 2022, the Licensing Department received an application for the full variation of a premise licence for Bargain Local 333 to 335 Leeds Road, Huddersfield, HD2 1YB. A copy of this application may be seen at Appendix A. The licensable activities applied for by the applicant are as follows. So the sale of alcohol off premise. So Monday to Sunday, they're requesting a 24-hour licence. In total, 3 representations have been received relating to this application. One of the representations came from Kirklees Environmental Health. In addition, 2 further representations were received from ward councillors from the Dalton ward. Councillor Khan has also submitted, who submitted an objection, has also asked for some public health data to be circulated, which you all should have received. So West Yorkshire Police also agreed 2 additional conditions with the applicant. The first condition was that the applicant would upgrade the CCTV system to Home Office specifications, record for 28 days, have 16 cameras operational covering both inside and outside the shop. The second condition was that no customers will be allowed in the shop after midnight and up to 5 AM, and all the sales in this time are to be carried out through a hatch opening onto the street. The representations that were received consider the following licensing objectives would not be met should this licence be granted. They are public nuisance and public safety. A copy of the representations may be seen at Appendix B. A copy of the conditions West Yorkshire Police have agreed with the applicant may be seen at Appendix C, and also has been circulated as a copy of the current licence at the premise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the licensing officer? I haven't got any questions. Councillor Davis? Councillor Gregg?
No, thank you.
Okay. So we'll move over to the applicant and the applicant's representative then. Could you please outline the application this morning, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application put forward in January to full variation for 24-hour license. There is an existing license in place up till 11 o'clock. The reason for this upgrade was on the public demand to have convenience stuff available. As you have noticed, due to the COVID, there's a lot of restriction in the last couple of years, and there's a lot of local community people walking in and say if you can have a late hours, that'd be convenient for us to get the convenient stuff. Reason why, so we have extended hours from 11 p.m. till late night, early morning. This is also going to benefit business in the long run, also serving the local community on the local community department. Not only it will tackle, we have invested in the business to upgrade, as the West Yorkshire Police has visited, with a uplift to the new inside interior, more environment friendly, even outside. Not only the cameras, but inside total uplift as well. This will also create the job opportunity for the local community, maybe 2-3 more jobs created. That will tackle the objectives raised by the councils of unemployment in the area, so that will create further employment. So it's directly affecting the business, not only the business, but also benefit the local community to tackle the employment issues and also serving the needs of the local community. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll move on to questions then, or any comments from the panel and anyone else in the room. I have a couple of questions. You've seen the bundle that's been put together today, and in that bundle there's information there from ward councillors in the area who have raised objections. So that's Councillor Khan and Councillor Mather. There's also an email from, there's also Environmental Health, and they'll be speaking a little bit later on, but also information from the police who came round to visit, and I think they did a 6-month review, something like that, of the situation. But going back to the councillors' comments, there's an email of the 18th of June where Councillor Khan raises concerns about antisocial behaviour affecting the peace. She talks about concerns around increase in alcohol levels and related incidents as a consequence. Are you able to comment on that? Have you got any views on what Councillor Khan has said?
Thank you very much, Chair. You mentioned the date June, but I don't have any June. Is it January 22?
It's page 35 in the bundle.
Thank you. I can't locate, but I can comment on those Councillor Khan's the issues that I've raised. The licensing, this store has been there for, as far as we have recently, our client has taken over. But this store has been over 25 years or 30 years approximately, and this sale of alcohol has ever been since there is off license. So since we have taken over, there is no issues we have noticed, which is a confirmation backed by the West Yorkshire, but there's no crime incident or anything. So I totally object, as the Council Khan says, there's antisocial behaviour or alcohol issues, which we have not noticed any social gathering outside. There's no alcohol related, which West Yorkshire Police has visited, and they confirmed there's no crime incident in the last 6 months as well. So it's totally objected to the council what it says, there is actual issue in relating to the alcohol. And since last few months, we have not seen since the taken over by Jafar Abbas, there's no such incident, no social gathering, and there's no antisocial behaviour in relation to the alcohol. And it's strictly, like we're not, as we can see the local community, there's a few objections raised by the councillor in terms of the underage people and the community that's like between 18 to 35 variation in there, which I cannot see as many as young people walking in. Majority where the client has notices, middle-aged people, 25 plus to 40 plus, that's actually buying the alcohol. And also, we have a very strict policy in terms of serving underage customers. Either they has to be accompanied by the adult, or they have to provide an ID in case, by the look of it, they're not sure whether they are overage or underage. They have to confirm the identity. So strict policies are in place. Make sure there's no cigarettes or alcohol-related products are sold to the underage. Even they look like 18 above or adult, they should present an IDs to confirmation. But that's the general policies in place. But in terms of the visual observation, there's no young population notices or seen in the vicinity. There's no antisocial behavior in the last 6 months, and there's no alcohol-related issue. There's no such incident, neither reported by us to the police, or neither police has actually incurred or come across. So I totally object what the council said there's any issues in terms of the alcohol-related incident.
Thank you. I do know the area well, and I understand that the shop is connected to houses. There's a row of houses, so in very close proximity to, residential properties. And also, I think what's threaded through this application is, there's issues about how it might impact the community, the peace, the residents who live there. Are you able to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. As if you see the location, the geographical location where it is, as you mentioned, you're aware of the area very well. On the Bar Street, there are few properties. So out of that, 2 occupied, and there's not much of a presence on this side. Looking opposite, there are businesses around, so there's no residential that's affected. And as you see, this has been there for a number of years. You're familiar with this area. So, if it's to serve up until 11 o'clock, there's no issues. So there shouldn't be any issue after 11. But looking on the Leeds Road side, on the main road side, there's about 10 to 12 houses on the main road. That's a very close proximity. Other than there's no houses. Opposite is a car park. Right on across the traffic light, there's a council street which is about 200 meters away. So there's, if you go on the further right-hand side towards the town, there's all businesses on the main road. So there is not a massive population that should be affected. On top of the nuisance and the noise issues you mentioned, it is busy anyway, A62 is a 24-hour traffic. So whoever's like a minimal number of houses there, they're already affected with the noise anyway. But considering that as well, and considering the shop's been there for a number of years selling the alcohol, the condition which we have put forward voluntarily to the police by using the hatch window, no direct interaction with the local public, and minimizing any antisocial behavior. So, and the public safety, and even more than that, is the personal safety, not to interact and serve by using the hatch window. And that will minimize. As you can see, there is no crime-related issue in the last 6 months, which the councillor has presented the data associated additionally, which we have received last night with the demographic and LSO-related things that have been forwarded to us about age-related and all the crime and deprivation-related things, which we personally believe that is not directly affecting the business, like it's mentioned about the deprivation. Deprivations means like if people are depriving. So how the business is a question to the councillor as well, when representing this data. How the business is affecting to their deprivation. It's the government's responsibility to make sure every individual in the country has good education, they have a house, they have a good health facility, good education, and a food on a plate. As a business, we're trying our best effort to provide all the convenience item to whatever available and reasonable prices. So that's available just around the corner. In terms of the deprivation, that is kind of noted in that data that is triggering the crime. So I mean, of course, if when the state's not providing enough education, enough money, that automatically trigger. I mean, when you have depriving, you will trigger the crime. So I mean, as a business, we have. I mean, I can totally object. I mean, this data presented that says business will increase the crime rate. Basically, it's the state that's not providing enough resources, whether it's education, good health, or the food. So that's triggering people to go out and about, any increased nuisance or any other crime-related activities in the general public. But as you mentioned, particularly about the houses earlier, so there's only 2 houses in that street and 10 on that side, but I cannot see any more houses that is directly affected. And if you're considering that 30 years that house has been there and running the shop, if it's not affected in 30 years, it will not be affected in the future as well. Thank you.
To be fair, there isn't anything from any of the residents objecting to this. So, I mean, I don't know if you're able to answer this question, but do you know if they're in support of it? Have they been in contact with you about this application? Because they don't seem to have been in contact with the council about it.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we, as the applicant, has a very close relationship with the neighbours as well, and in the community as well, which some of them volunteered to come along to support the application. The reason behind was initially just to support the community. That was our initial kind of like when we input the application. So they are happy with that. As you can see, there's no objection at all. So they were aware of that, and based on their demand that you can actually increase the number of hours. So that will in fact help us to get the convenience item, just a walking drive rather than us driving. And looking at the COVID condition last 2 years when there was a lot of restriction in place. So this is the lifeline of the community, walking along, getting the basic necessities just around the corner. So there's no objection received. There's a lot of supporters and evidence that willing to volunteer to come in if needed.
Thank you. Just one more question. So the police have put in some information basically saying it looks as though the only concerns they have, well, they have some concerns, but what they've sort of suggested is that conditions be attached. One of the conditions being that between midnight and 5 a.m. that customers are not allowed in the shop and that you serve through a hatch and that your CCTV system is upgraded. Is that something that you're content with?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, West Yorkshire Police visited last month in relation to the full variation, and applicant has a discussion about it. West Yorkshire Police has no issues in terms of the general as opinion that there's no crime-related issue, and they're happy with it. But they did ask question about the CCTVs, which when we took over, the CCTV was, I don't know how long they were old, so which we voluntarily actually suggested to the West Yorkshire Police to upgrade to the Home Office requirement, and it'd be a night vision, so we clearly catch in the area around, inside and outside. And I particularly, applicant, mentioned about the 16 camera will be installed, so that's the numbers, that's how it comes up, been kind of told to the West Yorkshire Police. And the second thing about the midnight hatch was voluntarily presented to the West Yorkshire because we have no interest for public safety, and more than that is our own and staff safety. We don't want it to serve one-to-one, like to keep the door like any other 24-hour store in the Kirklees Council. I can see there's around the corner on the Bradford Road in the far town, and a few others just on Aspley, 24-hour. So a lot of them there without hatch windows are serving. So they are taking a risk. But I, as an applicant, we don't want it to take any risk. For public safety, on more than that is the individual and personal and staff safety. We want a hatch window to be installed, so any serving after midnight will be purely through the hatch window and no direct relationship or contact with the general public.
Can I just clarify what West Yorkshire Police have said in this application? They say they have concerns over the shop trading 24 hours and the impact it might have on crime and disorder. So they have said they have concerns. but they have suggested some conditions, so I just want to clarify that with you. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to my colleagues to see if they also have any questions. Councillor Davies?
I have no questions at the moment, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gregg?
Thank you, Chair. I think you've been very comprehensive in picking on the key points. In terms of the hatch window, I appreciate that obviously it's going to be a security benefit for the staff. In terms of people who are customers coming late after midnight up to 5 a.m, whereabouts would that hatch be? And also, would your CCTV be in a position to capture customers outside waiting to be served for obviously their own security as well?
Thank you very much. That hatch window will be located towards the bar street, facing outside. Be a window at night pay. That's we discussed with the West Yorkshire Police. And the second thing about the location of the cameras, as we discussed with the West Yorkshire Police, about 16 cameras. So it'll be two facing Lees Road on either side, and be one facing Bar Street from Lees Road towards the Bar Street, towards the Myers on that road, and one be on the back. And that'll be a 5 camera covering outside all the locations, so there's no blind spot outside, so that cannot be seen. The rest are all the cameras in every corner inside, covering every blind spot, so make sure there's no hidden spot or visibility that's not clear. So that's basically everybody inside and anybody outside will be clearly visible through those cameras, and if needed, any recording by the West Yorkshire will that be available for the 28 days on request. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. So I'll move over to the licensing officer. Any questions, please, of the applicant?
No questions, Chair.
Sorry, environmental health?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, can I just ask the applicant what hours are you currently trading? What time do you open and what time do you close?
Thank you, Environmental Officer. The current opening time is 8 to 10. 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
Thank you. Could I just ask a further question? You did comment that there has been no current incidents of crime reported by the police in the last 6 months, and based on that information, that there won't be any crime with the extension of the licence and hours. How can you justify that without the information? The fact that you don't open later than 10 p.m. Have you got any evidence to support that?
Thank you for your concern. There's always an assumption. You can either take the data provided by the councillor from the last number of years that this is the crime ratio, there's X number of crimes happening. So it's all based on the facts that's happened. So you cannot anticipate something going to happen in the future. You can only assume there'll be no crime or there will be a crime full of everything. So it's based on all assumptions. So until it has happened, that can be a fact. And the sheet, the council can't present the data with the number of crimes, different, a lot of crimes with the facts in there. In terms of that confirmation by the West Yorkshire Police that there's no crime noted at all. So we just gone by the law controlling department that actually control these crimes, who's mainly dealing with these issues. They said, there's no issue in the postcode area, so we'll go by that. And also it's a supporting fact. Of course, if you can see all the facts by ONS that provided by the council can. It's a lot of facts, ONS says, there's a number of crimes, this and that related to that and that. It's all fact. So the fact says there is a crime in the area, so it's nothing is spare in the whole England. So either it's a minor or major. So what's the confirmation given by the way? There's nothing affecting at the moment, and the Job Extra has not noticed, not dealt anything in the last 6 months related to the crime in that particular. So that keeps us an evidence, or you can take it as an evidence, or you can simply denial that you don't believe in West Yorkshire. So we take as a strong evidence from there that is a very safe area for us to deal with these kind of. And also, if you can see in the vicinity, like if you go a few meters just around the corner and perhaps from far town, this is for 24 hours and there's no hatch window service. It's a very populated area, so there's no such crime happening in that. So this is, we believe this is a quite safe area, and since last few months, the applicant has not noted any such violence related or any threat related or antisocial behavior or any crime related activities. So which has a confirmation, and of course there is a 24-hour petrol station just around the corner, just a few meters away. So that's 24 hours as well. So there's a lot of 24 hours petrol stations around. There's 24 hours off licenses as well. And of course, there might be a crime, but I would say I would strongly agree with the West Yorkshire Police and happy with that the confirmation that they're happy with that is a safe area to work with. Yes, they have raised concern, but we're happy that is a very safe area to play and there is no issues in terms related to the crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it this point, Chair, that I raise any objections, or do we get to speak
It's
later?
the next round.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to objectors. So we have environmental health here who have raised an objection. There's also written objections from two of the ward councillors, Councillor Khan and Councillor Mather. We also have an email from West Yorkshire Police, as I've alluded to earlier, where the officers say that although they have concerns about the shop being open 24 hours, the impact that it may have on crime and disorder, after carrying out a 6-month assessment in the area, there is nothing of concern recorded for the immediate area, so that's acknowledged. And just to explain what was said in the email from the two ward councillors before I bring environmental health in, we've received an email from Councillor Khan. That email is dated the 18th of January. And in that email, Councillor Khan indicates that she opposes the application for a 24-hour licence because it may encourage antisocial behaviour, she says, and that it's in close proximity to residential areas. She also indicates that this area is identified by public health as having high levels of alcohol-related issues. And what she's also done is provided an information sheet, and I understand from what's been said is that you received that data in an email, so I'm able to refer to it. And in particular, I think Councillor Khan's also referring to the section where it talks about alcohol-related hospital admissions. And the last paragraph indicates that Dalton has the highest number of alcohol-specific hospital admissions in Kirklees. So I think that's the reference there that she's referring to. There's also an email from Councillor Mather, very similar to Councillor Khan's email. Again, indicates that she objects to the application, that it's likely to impact on antisocial behaviour in the area, impact on residents' safe and peacefulness of the environment. Again, she refers to the impact in respect of public health, and in addition to that, she also refers to a similar application that's happened, but I'm not going to go into that because it's a public meeting. So I think what she's trying to say is that other businesses have applied. Their application was turned down for one reason or another. We don't have access to that information as to why that happened, but she is referring to that there. So those are the written objections or conditions suggested. I'll move over to environmental health so they can now raise their objections. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The objections that I raised were in relation to public nuisance. We have concerns, the current hours of operation, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m, have demonstrated, due to information, statistics, that there's been no crime reported in the last 6 months. I do anticipate that, from experience, that if the premises were to open with an extended licence serving alcohol from 10 p.m. through to 5 a.m, or 8 a.m, that there would be antisocial behaviour issues associated with alcohol. This is kind of anecdotal in respect of a property you mentioned earlier, is Fartown 24/7. Over the years, we have had a number of incidents of noise complaints from people gathering outside, use of alcohol, sale of alcohol, nighttime economy through various sex workers, etc., in the vicinity. And it was something I was going to reference, but you introduced that property yourself, saying there was no issues with that. The police don't have the provision and resources to deal with that kind of activity because they have other priorities. Environmental health had attempted to deal with that, but because the noise is kind of transient and over a number of hours throughout the night, it'd always be difficult to witness that. But in addition to that, we couldn't deal with nuisance in terms of statutory nuisance, but we'd have to look at public nuisance and look at asking for a review of the licence. The problem with it is that residents get very tired and exhausted with, they've got the issue with being disturbed sleep during the night, and then they've got the issue with having to record these incidents for the council to investigate, and it just becomes a chore for them, so they basically lose heart and don't continue with that. So from my experience over a number of years, 24-hour off licence can create problems. In addition to the 24-hour licence, the fact that there is our role is to sort of protect the public from nuisance. And when we say nuisance, we're looking at noise disturbance, breaking sleep of residents in the area. It's well publicised by the World Health Organisation that broken sleep deprivation is detrimental to physical and mental health. And that can be well demonstrated and is well documented. So I think it is important. Our role in environmental health is about the protection of public health and the promotion of public health via the prevention of public nuisance. So in respect of this, my observations are that the councillor asked the question about the location of the hatch at the property. It says it's going to be on Bar Street, and I have got have members had a site visit to the location? Would it be helpful to put up the screen so that we can show the location on?
That would be helpful, yes, please.
Would that be helpful? I'm plugged in. I don't know how we... Okay. Right. So this is the location of the applicant's shop. If I can just move in a little bit closer. So we have the store here and residents on Leeds Road here and also on Bar Street here. So it's in close proximity. We're sharing party walls with residential properties. Now the hatch has been suggested to be located here on Bar Street. Is that correct? Okay.
That's right, thank you.
Thank you. That's the most, I mean, that is the closest it will get to a residential property. Our concerns anyway about, regardless of whether it's at the side here or whether or not it's on the front of the property, it is very close to local residents. And what we're going to get, what I have seen in the past is customers outside ordering provisions, including alcohol, receipt of the alcohol, consuming alcohol on the street, smoking cigarettes, just socialising, and you can end up with gatherings of people there, and you can end up with other nighttime economies going on, various activities going on. So those are our concerns, that local residents are going to be affected, and it's difficult to measure with the fact that you haven't been open through those hours as a 24-hour business without a licence, providing other things than alcohol. I mean, so those are our concerns. So the protection, our point here is that we will protect the public health by objecting under public nuisance. Now, it has been mentioned there hasn't been any objections from local residents. Well, one of the reasons in my experience is that sometimes residents, they feel a little bit unable or incapable of objecting, and that can come down to certain things like education, socio-economic situation. And these properties are not, you know, they're quite sort of low-end properties. The people in there might not be enabled or feel capable of objecting, putting their representations forward. So I think that's where we stand. So we're going to get issues with people walking, footfall, pedestrians coming up, using the hatch. We're going to get vehicles pulling up, and typically they're going to pull up on Bar Street. They're going to go onto Bar Street and do a U-turn and park up. And associated with vehicle noise is music. It's very common. We've had this experience over at Fartown 24/7. People pulling up in vehicles, loud bass music from vehicles, people shouting over the bass music, ordering extra things, provisions from their friends who are at the shop. And I do think that these are things that are beyond the applicant's control. You don't have any control over these customers. It's about, you know, them being responsible citizens and not creating this noise. But it is a consequence of an extension of the licence. And I feel that we should be looking to object to the licence on these grounds. And I'll reiterate that, you know, it's about public protection and public health. It's not a constant. It's always about improving people's situations, protecting the amenity of the area. And I think that the licence would not do that. It would be detrimental to the amenity, detrimental to the lives of residents. The other point is that you don't need planning permission for this activity because it predates the planning legislation. I've looked at that. But if you were to apply for an application, if this wasn't currently retail and you were to apply for retail, through the planning process, we would object to the hours that you're wanting and probably limit it to 2,300 hours. So close the shop at that time, purely for the protection of the local amenity. So I do think that there is a case here and we have to represent the locals. And those are my grounds for objection, your Chair. Is that okay?
Thank you. I'll move to a round of questions. I've got a couple of questions actually from what you've said. So just to get a rounded picture then, if the licence was granted today and residents complained, what powers do environmental health have to address that?
Thank you, Chair. We don't have the powers to deal with statutory nuisance under the Environmental Protection Act because it's noise from the street, but we would have the ability, there is the provision to call for a review of the licence, to look at the licence conditions and maybe reduce them, so to limit your hours of sale. But in theory, that's good, but in practice, it's really difficult to demonstrate. And it can take a disproportionate amount of time, residents' time, who are also suffering with broken sleep, sleep deprivation, sleep disturbance, and also council provision time as well. Because we're going to get having licence officers attend, environmental health officers attend, trying to gather that evidence. The police won't be able to, the police generally wouldn't be able to attend because they've got other priorities. This is low scale for them. And then we would have to present it at a licensing review panel, so similar to this, put our objections to that. And I just think that, I don't think that's a great response to a situation that could occur. The potential is there, and it's an unknown entity because we don't know about you. If you'd have been operational for, say, 24 hours a day for the last 12 months or 18 months, then, and demonstrate there was no antisocial behaviour there, I think you would have a stronger case for supporting your application, but we would still object on the basis that we know that alcohol creates antisocial behaviour. We know it does create other nighttime economies, it attracts other nighttime economies, and we do know that, you know, it's a common fact, and the police will say it themselves, nothing good happens after 1 a.m. with people and alcohol. So I just think that in looking at public nuisance and the protection of the residents, close proximity, the likelihood is it's going to create disturbance to residents, which is beyond the applicant's control. Does that answer your question, Chair?
Thank you. You talked I'm sorry. You talked about your experience and you mentioned one particular location. I mean, obviously we don't want to name locations, but from your experience where shops have been granted 24-hour licenses, what has been the consequence of those things?
In my experience on busy main junctions as well, where we've got major A roads with junctions, we've had issues with vehicles pulling up, which we've looked at. Vehicles pulling up, loud exhaust, revving the vehicles, loud bass music, people shouting, vehicles meeting, people socialising there, not even associated with the shop and not, because it just becomes a natural social gathering point where people go, oh yeah, I'll meet you at the 24/7, because they can identify it. But customers do use the shop. They go in, they come out, they're under the influence of alcohol, under the influence of other substances, and there might be some sort of sexual workers in the vicinity. So it can attract all that activity. The outcome for local residents is that they're getting disturbance from sleep, whether or not they have the windows open or closed. And it's unreasonable noise, but it's so difficult to kind of control because it's transient. It might happen a dozen times a night, it might happen 4 times a night, but it's always 7 days a week. And it's, and associated with that, then you do get low-level crime. Well, actually, you get some more serious crime that can be reported to the police, but it doesn't necessarily get responded to at the time because it might not take priority, and things can just continue. So, in the case of the 24-hour premises that was referenced by the applicant, I know that licensing did a lot of work with them. And things have improved, but the issues with noise still exist. And I know that because I see that on myself when I'm working the night shift or I'm in the vicinity. You can still see these social gatherings and activities, or you get issues with littering as well, which is like a common problem. But I just think that, with hindsight, at the time we were dealing with these complaints, both licensing and ourselves agreed that it wouldn't have been, it wasn't the best decision that we made. However, it's difficult to call for a review of the licence. So those are the problems that we've experienced over the years. Does that answer your question, Chair?
It does. One more question from me. Sorry to have so many questions. West Yorkshire Police have been quite clear in their email. Although they say they have concerns about the shop trading 24 hours and the impact it might have crime and disorder in the area, after carrying out their assessment, there's nothing of concern recorded for the immediate area. But what they seem to be suggesting is that they don't have an issue with the application as long as they adhere to those conditions that have been suggested. Do you have any comment on that?
I suppose that, yes, that the police are referring to no issues associated with crime. So, the police are not empowered to deal with noise and issues with noise disturbance to local residents, and it's something that I get involved in on a weekly basis. Noise from factories, noise from dwellings affecting residents, noise from businesses like yourselves affecting, for example, from air conditioning units. And often they say the council can't do anything, I'm going to contact the police. Now, the police haven't got any powers to deal with this kind of thing. The police can deal with crimes when they're happening, and after the fact they can gather evidence and deal with it. But the police can't deal with somebody turning up in a vehicle there, pulling up, revving the vehicle, playing loud music, leaving it on while their friend is buying whatever he's buying from the 24-hour premises, whether it's alcohol or not. And I just think that, yeah, the police haven't got any concerns, but it's low-level antisocial behaviour that it's going to create, not through any fault of the applicant wanting to extend his hours of business. It's just the nature of the beast. It will happen because people are inconsiderate and will create noise. And typically, at that time of day, 2300 hours, to 700 hours or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's classed as nighttime noise. It's a more sensitive time of day. And yes, the police haven't got any concerns, but it will create noise problems and it will affect residents. If that answers your question.
What I'm asking you is, the suggestions that have been made, will it mitigate some of the things that you've said, or do you think it would make it worse? Because what I'm thinking of is, if there's a hatch outside,
Yes.
there's more likely to be conversations outside.
Yes, it will.
So is it likely to make it worse? Is it likely to
Right.
improve the situation?
Okay, the hatch has been requested and CCTV by the police for the safety of the applicant and employees, which is great, because that's a really safeguarding is for health and safety issues. But that won't mitigate noise from your customers. It's only going to create or support further noise. It's going to make the matter worse by the fact that customers cannot enter the shop. That's what I would say. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I'll move to my colleagues. Councillor Davis?
Am I okay to question the applicant at this point?
It's to the objector.
No, in that case, no. Thank you.
Councillor Gregg?
Thank you. Yeah, it was really interesting actually to hear what you said about the neighbours and why they might not have objected. In these circumstances, it would be nice for more consultation to be done with neighbours. But obviously, appreciate we're basing decisions on possibility of what might happen, and we have to take into consideration what you've suggested and what the police have suggested. You suggested that you mentioned that the police said they didn't have any concerns. They did have concerns, which obviously they've mitigated. It's whether or not the mitigation that has been suggested outside the hatch would create more problems outside. You alluded to the fact that there were other spin-off problems in that area. Is there anything you can expand on that?
It wasn't that there were other problems in the area currently. It's just that with a 24-hour licensed premises, that it does attract other activities. So you do get the people that are, let's call them, that live their normal life through the night and sleep during the day for social reasons, for business reasons, you know. And we're looking at, you know, people with alcohol and substance issues. We're looking at people that are working in that are sex workers in the local area, and also, you know, crime. People meet up and rendezvous at these, and it's all anecdotal is the term, but it's not. It's things that it's what I have witnessed over the years with 24/7 licensed premises, and you know, it will create problems for residents. In my opinion, that is. I've experienced that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've come to the end of that part of the session, but I know Councillor Davies has a question for the applicant, and I'm going to allow her to ask that question.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on a point that went by in passing earlier. Can you just tell me what your current operating hours are, please?
Thank you very much. As mentioned earlier, it's 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 p.m.
Yeah, so I just want to further probe that, if that's okay. It's a big leap to go from 8 in the morning till 10 to a full 24-hour operation. And what justification do you have for that, and what impact do you have? Because if you're saying that you're not experiencing any trouble or any antisocial behaviour, that, following up on what the environmental health officer was saying, you're not actually trading into the nighttime economy at the moment. So I just wondered if you considered that as well.
Thank you very much for the question. There's always some new things that you try. So, I mean, of course, we have not traded the night time, but something, if we don't try, we can't experience it. So, yes, we can operate until 11 o'clock, but we close at 10 o'clock. From 11 until 5 p.m., there's an extra 6 hours that we are operating. Until we do it, then we can tell you what our experiences are in the late night and whether it will work for us or it won't work for us. But in terms of the impact that you're saying is, the main objective or the main impact will be the business will grow. Okay, it will increase, bring more sales. And the second factor is that cater the needs of the local community. When it's out of hours, they need something. You can see there's a lot of council population just across the road, and their basic needs are catered by this shop. There is another shop about a few hundred meters towards the cell petrol station, so which they have to walk, which is very inconvenience for them. So that's the second factor in terms of a late night operation. But of course, the third thing, that will also create a couple of more jobs that tackles the unemployment as well. So there are a few factors that will affect, or it will come after operating those 6 hours, as you mentioned, what impact it will have. Of course, it's a greater impact on the business, but it's also on the community in terms of creating employment as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. So we're at the stage now where we've come to the end of the session, and what we'd like to do is give everybody an opportunity to sum up. If there's anything else you'd like to say to persuade the panel on what direction we should take. So I'm going to start with the licence officer. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or any comment you'd like to make?
No, I've got no further comments to make. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to the applicant.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll conclude after the remarks of the environmental health officer and the councillor. As mentioned, a few points, just wanted to address that, as it's just based on probation that, sometimes the neighbours don't raise any issues, which we have a very close relationship. This is a statement based on the assumption, because the police might have consulted around the community when they have come to the seeing that there is a safe area. But as the applicant live very proximately, and there's not too much population, there's 2 houses on this and 10 houses on this, and they have a very good relationship, and everybody is a decent working families. They're not like as mentioned by the environment, it's a low society. I mean, the people on the low average are the unemployed, or living on a low wages. So they're decent people and working class people. And of course, the police might have. We have a very close relation. Nobody has an objection, and that's why you haven't received any objection, because they're happy with it, and it's all the community is happy. As I mentioned earlier in the conversation, that if needed, there are witnesses that can come and actually support the application. And of course, emphasizing on the assumptions that there be a one-to-one interaction to serve in the alcohol. It be a hatch window. We are again and again emphasizing, which emphasizes very first, that's a condition that we have set ourselves, be a hatch window. There's no interaction with the general public one-to-one. It be through a hatch window, so be a distance in place. In terms of nuisance, there be no nuisance, as we have come across that the applicants live there. There's no such issues. And all the raised concerns are based on assumption. So based on assumption, the West Yorkshire Police has given the fact this is a very safe area, and based on assumption, there will be no concern. If you can see in the vicinity, this is the right far end of the Dalton area. There's a lot more population further council, further up towards the town. So this is quite, you see, there's not much residential, very small, 10 houses you can considering based on the impact that be affected. There's like thousands, it's all business community around, and any residential is about 300-400 meters away, living state, which is not directly impaired. If case, based on the environmental officer's assumption that, let's suppose, if it will attract the nuisance or any other antisocial behavior, based on the fact, yes, if it will be, let's assume, which he said, which 24 hours have, but we have not come across in the last number of months, and police confirm that there's no such issues as well. And in case, yes, there might be out of 1,000 people that coming in, there might be 1 or 2 that pass by. So, which is might be 0.1% of the population that we are serving, or the customers that we are serving. The majority is the local community, which is the state opposite, or during the days the businesses closer by. So there's not many community it be served, like if you go further towards the traffic light, toward the far town end area, or towards the town touching, like Bradley Mills areas. So we're not touching that. It's mainly the population just right opposite, about 300 meters. Is the council state that coming in, or the businesses around there that the main customer. So there's no direct impact on the vicinity or effect in terms of the nuisance or any issue or antisocial behavior. But again, the last emphasized that it be all the areas will be covered through CCTV. Any issues in terms of raised or happened that be reported is just purely we're going through the recommendation or another volunteer to the police that in case we are cooperating and abiding law citizen. So this is mandatory to cover ourselves and the community. And second thing is safeguarding the hatch window. We have no interaction. So that's a condition we have set up ourselves, which the West Yorkshire Police agreed. So I believe there be no objection to anybody, as this shop has been operating license in alcohol sales for a number of, we as a businesses cannot stop anybody coming in, but it's not the only alcohol sales, there's another convenience items as well that we serving during that hours. So you cannot assume based on assumption that might be 100 people walking in at midnight and asking for a lot of revving cars. So it's all the presented arguments are based on assumption that it could happen. But let's suppose if it doesn't happen, so that's very unfair for us. So if you have a fact, then we can talk. The fact is that there's a very peace and calmful area. As you had acknowledged, so there shouldn't be any issue in granting a license. Let's suppose if you're still considering all the arguments presented, then let's say, give it a 6 months, based on all those conditions, hatch window and CCTV, and we still think that you don't agree or there is still an issue, then you can review and cancel it, but that's based on, then you will have a fact at that time, yes, we have a data available, this is what happened, and that's why, we can't. But at the moment, it's just an assumption, and assumption is based on the fact that evidence given by the police is a very nice and safe area. So just summarize, CCTV camera operated all inside and outside. We hatch window serving, no interaction, and we strongly believe there's no antisocial behaviors, no license in the place, and our license should be granted, and it'd be very unfair if it's not. Thank you so much.
And then lastly, environmental health. You can just sum up very quickly, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to your comments about neighbours haven't objected, nor have they written a supporting statement to support the business application. In relation to CCTV comments, that you've got various CCTV comments covering all the premises, cameras covering all the premises. The noise that will be created is beyond your control. And the CCTV, all it will do is film it. It doesn't prevent it from occurring. So it doesn't mitigate the impact on local residents. You say that there are no issues currently, and that the objections from environmental health, myself, are based on assumptions. I just wanted to respond to that because I think that's we're acting as on behalf of local residents and local businesses. I have 22 years of experience working in environmental health. A lot of it is involved in pollution and noise control team, dealing with licensing, dealing with premises applications, and dealing with the aftermath of noise problems. And it's based on that experience and my experience with 24-hour licensed premises, So I think it's unfair it's an assumption, it's based on actual experience. In addition to that, I am a resident of Kirklees, and I do use the areas that we're discussing today, and the area of the 24/7 shop that we discussed, that you referenced earlier. I've seen for myself as a local resident issues with 24/7 sales of alcohol. So I just wanted to respond to that. And in summary, I would just ask the applicant maybe if he wanted to adjust his licence to a 2300, 11 p.m. finish for the sale of alcohol, because I don't think there is, you cannot control noise that is created by your customers outside your premises. That's my summary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you everyone for attending. We now need an opportunity, the panel and I, to consider what we've heard today and to reach a decision in respect of the application. So can I ask everyone to wait outside the room? Once we have come to a decision, we'll invite everyone back in and deliver what we've decided. Thank you. So thank you everyone for the time for us, the panel to consider. So the panel have considered all the relevant information that we've heard today. We've considered obviously the applicant's application, what the objectors has had to say, and also the data supplied by ward councillors about that specific location. We've taken the decision to refuse the application. The application is refused on the basis of prevention of public nuisance grounds, how it's likely to impact on local residents, the likelihood of disturbance through the night due to the close proximity of residential properties. So thank you everyone for joining us. You will get a decision in writing, so I just want to confirm that. Okay?
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Licence and Safety Committee. Just to confirm at this stage how to use the microphones. So can you point it towards you when I direct you to speak and turn it on when I direct you to speak? That will then motion for the TV screens to move towards you so that people who are watching on the webcast can see what's happening and what's been said. Okay? So we'll launch straight into the application today. So we'll begin by doing a round of introductions. My name's Councillor Amanda Pinnock. I'm the chair of the panel today. I'll move over to my colleagues. Councillor Davies.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Paola Davies, I'm on the panel today.
Councillor Gregg.
Good morning. My name's Adam Gregg, councillor for Lindley Ward. Thank you.
Council's legal representative.
Tahir Hanif.
Council's licensing officer.
Roxana Javed.
And we have the applicant with us. Can you identify yourself, please?
Matt Jones.
Mr. Jones, are you here with a representative? Thank you. And we have an objector. Could you identify yourself?
I'm Tom Probert.
Thank you. Environmental health.
Hello, Mark Chapman from Environmental Health. Thank you.
So just to confirm today, the meeting is taking place at Huddersfield Town Hall, but it's also webcast. So it's a public meeting as well. Okay, so launching straight into the agenda. The site visit took place at Gordon and Frank's, situated at 331 Wakefield Road, Denbydale, Huddersfield. So we'll begin by asking the licence officer to outline the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this is an application for a grant of a premises licence for DD8 Hospitality Limited, trading as Gordon and Frank's Coffee House, 331 Wakefield Road, Denbydale, Huddersfield. The purpose of this report is to inform members of an application for the grant of a premises licence, which, as a result of representations received, has been referred to this panel for determination. On 25th of August 2022, the Licensing Department received an application for the grant of a premises licence for the premises at 331 Wakefield Road, Denbydale. The application was made by the company DD8 Hospitality Limited. A copy of the application and photographs of the chair can be seen together with the plan at Appendix A. The licensable activities applied for by the applicant were as follows: recording music indoors Monday to Wednesday, 8 while 1600 hours, Thursday to Friday, 8 while 1900, Saturday and Sunday, 9 while 1900 hours. Recording music indoors Thursday, Friday or Saturday up to 2 occasions per month for pre-booked events nights as background music only, from 9 to 2200 hours. Sale of alcohol on sales only Monday to Wednesday, 12 while 1600 hours, Sunday to Thursday, 12 while 1900 hours. Sale of alcohol Thursday, Friday or Saturday up to 2 occasions per month for pre-booked event nights. Alcohol will be for a table meal only. 2 representations have been received from local residents. These representations consider that the following licensing objectives would not be met should the licence be granted: public safety, prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, protection of children from harm. A copy of these, Chair, can be found at Appendix B. We do have an email received from an applicant in support of the application. That is at Appendix C. The Secretary of State guidance are at Appendix D, Chair. Consultation has taken place in accordance with the Act. Environmental Health response. Environmental Health have recommended that a condition be placed on the premises licence. This condition has been agreed by the applicant. The additional condition agreed is that the alcohol is to be served with a table meal only. Planning have been consulted. With the changes in 2021 to the use classes order, the change from a bridal shop to a cafe does not require a change of use, as both uses now fall within Class E. There are no conditions relating to the use which would have restricted the hours of operation. and the consultees can be seen at Appendix E. Chair, I did consult planning, and they did say that the applicant did put an application in, but they did obviously refund the monies because they didn't need planning permission. In order for the application to be determined, when determining the application, members have agreed to the representation may have such steps as they consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. These steps are grant the application with the appropriate conditions, exclude from the scope of the license any of the licensable activities which relate to the application, or reject the application. Chair, members of the panel are requested to determine the application.
Any questions for the licensing officer? Councillor Davis?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gregg?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll move over to the applicant. Could you please outline the application, please?
If it's helpful, I just wanted to read the letter that I wrote that I sent round some of the local residents.
Can I just ask you to move a little bit closer to the microphone?
Hang on, is that better? Sorry about that. Soz all, I can't find it now. The initial application was to allow alcohol to be served to a table with a plated meal up to 10 p.m. Thursday to Sunday. We set out in our initial application that it was not our intention to open regularly to that time, but to create one-off evening events, for example, a tapas menu with paired wines. By covering Thursday to Sunday 10 p.m, we hope to avoid the need to submit regular 10 p.m. event notices. So we wanted to keep our options open. Once we put the initial application in and there were some objections to what we were doing, I spoke to the licensing department and made some changes. So as a general rule, our licence would cover us until 7 p.m. Thursday to Sunday, not 10 p.m. I conceded the point about serving a plated meal because I felt that would actually help with some of the licensing objectives. And we asked to be allowed to extend our hours to 10 p.m. on up to 2 occasions per month for our event nights, to limit it to those two. It's worth noting we both have young families and have no desire to greatly deviate from our current general operating hours. We can only seat 24 guests inside, and the majority of our 8 tables are for 2 guests, so gatherings will only ever be intimate. Any guest wishing to leave the premise, either at the end of an event or the end of the day, or to leave to smoke, will be asked to do so quietly and respectfully with appropriate signage in place. We already have blinds on the ground floor, which we intended to pull down to block any line of sight. We've now gone further and installed frosting across a large section of the downstairs windows facing the property across the road, and the upstairs window as well. We have no desire to create another pub in the village of Denby Dale or a wine bar. That is not our intention, which is clearly outlined in the hours of operating that we've asked for. We did send a letter around and ask people to come to the property, anyone that wanted to ask any questions, and no one did. If it's helpful now, I just wanted to outline some of the points regarding the licensing objectives. I wasn't sure if I was going to get another chance to speak, so is that okay?
That's fine. So I have some questions. I'm sure my colleague does.
Do you want to do them first rather than me just talk at you for... Would you want to do them first rather than me talk at you for...
I think that would be...
Sorry.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because then at least it can direct you to what we want to hear most about. Yeah? So I've got some questions. My colleagues and maybe the licence officer, environmental health, and I know there is someone here who's objecting, so he may also have questions. So I want to know a little bit more about the business, the current business. So from the papers I can see that you're running a coffee house, so you're serving food and drink. So how long have you been operating, and how's the business been going?
We opened the coffee shop on the 15th of November. We've met all our financial targets that we set out for our daily takings and footfall. It's become quite a vibrant hub in the in the village. I gave up my job as a managing director of a large catering company. I've been a DPS for 20 years to run the coffee house and create something which I felt had a real local vibe.
I guess the ultimate question is, why are you delving into serving alcohol, and what sort of alcohol do you intend to serve?
It's quite a small premise, so the idea of, creating multiple, like a pub, is not the way we can go. We intend to, I'll answer your first question, why? Why do you want to do it? It wasn't my intention when we first opened, but my customers, the number of people that had asked me if, they'd love to be able to have a glass of Prosecco with their cake in the afternoon. That was the first thing that started coming up. Then the next request was gin, a glass of gin with a bit of cake, and and I thought that sounded like a good idea. So our intention would be to serve Prosecco, a gin and tonic, and we've met with the Magic Rock Brewery to provide canned beer that we pour into glasses if someone wanted a beer. We get a lot of families coming in, so in an afternoon, some of the gents in the family might fancy a beer, whilst the others might prefer a Prosecco or a gin and tonic. When it comes to the evening events, no great deviation. One of the ideas I had was to have a wine and cheese evening, so we would pair it with wines as part of the ticket sale.
So are you intending to serve alcohol with food?
That's my only intention. The licence the stipulation that's been put on it is that we would serve alcohol with food at all times. The training document that I've produced, which I also submitted with my initial application, makes it clear that anyone wanting to serve alcohol without food wouldn't be able to.
You talk about 2 pre-booked events, 2 sessions a month, and that's when you're asking for the licence really to go on until much later. Alcohol 12 p.m. until 10 p.m, music 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. What do you intend to do during those sessions, just to give us a little bit more information?
So the normal daytime cafe closes at 4 o'clock. I don't really want to deviate much from that, because I've come from that's not our intention. When we have our late nights, it's probably going to start maybe 6, 7 o'clock. People will have to have prepaid and booked a ticket. So an example would be a 3-course tapas menu. Guests would arrive, they'd be seated. We would take their drinks order and then begin service of the food. There wouldn't be a choice to order food. It will be a preset menu for those people. There's no live music. It's purely background music. It's very quiet. You can't hear it from outside. You can barely hear it from upstairs in the premise.
Okay, so you will have seen in the pack that various people have raised objections, and we do have an objector with us today who will obviously go through his concerns about the application. But I think it's important for me to sort of take you through what's been said and whether you're able to respond to those, because not everyone who has objected is here with us today. So some of the objectors talk about how the influence of alcohol might affect crime and disorder in the area. So I'm wanting your opinion on that. Litter, noise nuisance, because it is a residential area. Could you comment on those to begin with, please?
There are 3 larger premises in Denbydale, with the opportunity to drink alcohol in volume is far greater than what we're creating at Gordon and Franks. Issues from these premises must be rare, or something would have been done to limit their activities or revoke the licence. The White Hart pub across the road has just had their licensing hours extended from 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. with no limits. There was a bring your own policy at the Palace restaurant. They are currently closed for sitting in, but they're planning on opening pretty shortly. And I certainly don't see a massive problems created by the Palace restaurant with their bring your own policy, where clearly the control of the sale of alcohol is far less. The White Hart also has obviously a far larger capacity. And then there's the Denby Dale Club, which I walk past daily, which is in an even more residential area, in my opinion. I walk past it on my way home from work, and it's always very busy. And as a club, it sells very cheap alcohol. The evidence from living in Denby Dale in this particular location is that alcohol consumption has not led to an increase in crime or created a public nuisance, certainly from these places. The public nuisance, there'll be very little noise generated by background music. As I said before, it's not audible from outside, certainly not from across the street. I actually believe our activities will largely go unnoticed by following the correct procedures and checks that as a DPS or any premises holder should carry out outside the premises, checking for cigarette butts, checking for litter. There's a bin just to the side of me where there's actually a stub out cigarette bin. And they actually use it pretty well, to be fair, the people that walk past smoking. I've let one person outside. I've seen one person from my premise smoke since I've been there. I do not think there's a general consensus that they all stand outside smoking in mass numbers. Again, it's a 24-seater coffee house. The absolute maximum number of adults in the building as customers will be 24. If we take the far larger Palace, I rarely see anyone outside smoking. As I said, one person in 5 months isn't a lot. Anyone who is, sorry, I talk too slowly. The odd one or two that may do will be politely asked to do so respectfully and in an appropriate area via ourselves and via signage. There's a stub it out cigarette bin just round the corner by the barbers, which one of the barbers uses most, I suppose. But that's the most appropriate place for anyone to stand.
One of the emails that we've received from one of the objectors, and I don't know if the gentleman here is specifically going to address that, because we have redacted versions, we don't get to see who's sort of raised those objections. But there's one that talks about privacy. It talks about their window being opposite the business and the concerns about people being able to look through and see what's going on in their home. So they link that to protection of children. I'm assuming they have children. Are you able to comment on that?
I've installed I actually have sympathy with his comments, and when they were first made, my initial application made it clear that I would do what was needed to block any view, direct line of sight as I saw it. I've now completed installing the frosting to stop that line of sight from within the premises. It does, naturally, it decreases the light in there a little bit. I know some of the members have been in and seen it, and they can comment, but I think it ably covers any direct line of sight for anyone looking at the properties across the road, which is obviously what I wanted to try and achieve. I've gone for a reasonably temporary solution to start off with, because the landlord's replacing the window frames shortly, so I'm just waiting for that to be confirmed.
I don't have any more questions for the time being. I'll move over to my colleagues. Councillor Davis?
Just to follow up on the frosting issue, have you had any feedback from residents since you've put the frosting in?
No.
Councillor Gregg?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we have some objectors. We have one with us today, and we have a written objector. It's important for me to go through that, I think, first, before I let the gentleman come in. So we have one objector, as I've alluded to, who talks about their window facing the business. And I know you've addressed that by talking about the frosting. And that resident has raised concerns in respect of protection of children from harm, public safety, and prevention of public nuisance. So you've had an opportunity to look at that. There's also another one where a representation form for interested parties has been completed. and that individual talks about prevention of crime and disorder, people being under the influence of alcohol, noise nuisance, petty crime, damage to vehicles and litter. They also talk about public safety, that doors of the premises open straight onto the pavement of a busy road. It talks about smokers congregating outside, which may affect pedestrians. And it talks about people being under the influence of alcohol. It also talks about parking issues, but I think it's more of a planning issue. It goes on to talk about the prevention of public nuisance, again, linking to noise nuisance, and the fact that there's an establishment in close proximity. Protection of harm from children, again, the window issue, about the window being directly outside the premises and a clear view of the window inside the rooms. So that's what that one was referring to. So I'm going to let the gentleman come in now and talk about his concerns. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. The only ones of my concerns that haven't been covered are the frosting on the window, a few more points on that, and possibly the feasibility of being able to serve that many meals with the facilities that you've got, which I'll ask about in a minute. I note that the frosting doesn't seem to be a condition of the licence, which I'm guessing means it could be removed at any point, replaced with a different window, and the line of sight becomes an issue again. And also the frosting at present doesn't fully cover the window, and the windows on that building, I believe, was originally designed to be a retail premises with big display windows that are designed for people to look through. And at the moment, we've got people sat at that window looking out through windows that are designed to give them a good view, and those windows are directly opposite my house. Not too concerned for me, but I do have 2 teenage daughters. The applicant cannot know about all the people who he has in his premises. He cannot know their past, their behaviour, their tendencies. So I do have worries that people can watch who's coming and going. They could see me leave, for example. They could see that there are 2 teenage girls in the house on their own. It would not be that difficult to work that out, as they can be sat watching what's going on for hours and hours whilst having their meal. So there is concern on that. The other question I have that I don't think's been addressed yet is I'm not sure what kitchen facilities there are, and I'm not sure about the feasibility of serving 24 3-course tapas meals. I'm not sure that condition can be met with the facilities that are in at the moment. I'm sure the applicant can address that though. Thank you.
So I'll move to questions. Can I just ask you about the last point that you made about the feasibility of serving 24 meals? Could you just go into a little bit more detail about what your concerns are about the kitchen?
I don't know what kitchen facilities there are there. With it having been a retail premises before, I don't imagine it's got dedicated kitchen facilities. So I'm just wondering about the feasibility of actually managing to prepare 24 meals, either once or twice throughout the evening, depending on how many sittings there's going to be. I'm just wondering about the applicant's ability to meet that condition.
Thank you. Councillor Davies?
Thank you. I have no questions at the moment.
Councillor Gregg?
I have no questions, thank you.
Licensing officer?
The only thing I've got to say, Chair, is obviously the kitchen, that isn't a licensing objective. So I don't know if you want to address that, or should you address that, if environmental health want to come in on that, but that is not about the licence.
Thank you. Environmental health?
I've got some comments, but no questions specifically. But I can address a couple of issues that have been raised by the objector, if that's helpful.
Yes.
Chair. Would you like me to do that now, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good morning, Matt Chapman, Environmental Health. Just in respect to the kitchen, the business is a food business currently, and it would be registered with Kirklees Environmental Health Food Team under the registration regulations. It will have been inspected by a food hygiene inspector, and it will have had a scores rating, so it will be deemed to be adequate for the current activity. So it meets the objectives of the Food Safety Act, I think it is, and the European directives. But again, just to reiterate, the licensing said that the kitchen facilities are not relevant to the licence application. It's a completely different issue, and in addition to, and it would have been something perhaps could have been objected to at the planning stage, when the planning application was put in by the applicant to change of use from retail to the cafe. And that would have been the time to address the privacy issue, would have been the change of use from retail to, and that would have been an objection to do at the planning stage. Again, I understand the concerns. I did go out, because we're interested in public nuisance. Our concerns from environmental health are that, yeah, alcohol's been served, what's going to be the impact on the local community and the immediate neighbours. So I've looked online, done a visit. I'm aware of the White Hart and the Dalesman. The Dalesman historically has been problematic over the years. The White Hart, not so much, and not recently. They have had an extended licence. So looking at the application, it seemed that it had some mitigation in there to deal with any concerns raised by local residents. But I did have a conversation with the applicant, and one of the issues was privacy, and he did talk about putting the privacy glass on. I did a visit and to see what the privacy issues were, because it's public nuisance, and I thought, yeah, okay, I can see the issue here. But when I arrived, the frosting had been put on the windows, and myself and my colleague, our line of sight, there was no invasion of privacy to any dwellings in the vicinity. It was interesting, I was there was the side windows, actually the frosting wasn't present, but whilst I was there, the applicant was in the process of fitting some frosting, because it had fallen off. So again, once it was in place, it didn't appear to present any issues with privacy for local residents. But again, the privacy issue would have been one for the planning stage. Did speak to the applicant and said, look, it might be worthwhile putting a condition on the licence to only serve alcohol with table meals, because that is kind of promoting the activity that you're doing. So that is our position, and hopefully that will answer your questions or your concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from anyone? No? Okay. So we have a supporting letter, an email that was sent on the 22nd of February from someone from the community. As I've said before, the names are redacted for public safety. And what this individual says is, and it's addressed to the panel, Dear Sirs, I'm writing to support the premises licence application of Gordon and Frank's Coffee House, 331 Wakefield Road, Denbydale. I am sure you will agree it is important to a community to have retail, grocery, commercial, education and hospitality services to ensure that the local economy is sustainable and enriches the lives of those living within the area. Never has it been more important for communities to be supportive, provide well-being and provide support, provide safe havens for people to gather. Often social hubs provide these places and enable to the lonely, vulnerable families and young adults to gather and make connections. Hospitality venues such as Gordon and Frank's are in demand, and as they prefer an alternative to a pub environment or a busy large restaurant, which are in abundance throughout Kirklees. This local startup business has provided a much-needed hub for all generations to meet and enjoy social time. Importantly, the business has supported employment within the community and provided training initiatives to young workers in their first job roles. Their application to adopt a premises licence will surely be supported by the council to further enable the business to provide an extended offer on occasion, to provide variety of offer and encourage more of the community to meet socially in a sit-down, limited capacity space. As always, a small minority of local residents oppose the plans, which appear to be vexatious, with no real merit or substance, and surely would not be considered a valid representation. The owners of Gordon and Franks have amended their application to appease the objectors, but also to set out honestly how they intend to trade. As you are aware, it is always the responsibility of the premises holder and the designated premises supervisor to ensure that the 5 licensing objections are upheld at all times, and if breached would result in revocation of the licence and as a result business failure. The objections suggest that the licence holder would immediately breach these objectives. Why would they? If we believe that every new premises licence holder did so, then we would not have the wealth of hospitality venues across the borough which trade safely, responsibly and serve the interest of their community. I hope the council, the environmental health officers, EHOs, I should say, police and local MP will support this exciting, independent new venture. I would be prepared to provide a testimonial or represent the application at any form of the hearing on behalf of the community. Yours sincerely. So that was a supporting email from someone from the community. Okay, so I will move to environmental health as a responsible authority to make any representations. I know you said something earlier, but this is your time to say.
Yeah, having reviewed the application and site visited and the mitigation that the applicant has submitted in his application, I think it was a reapplication, didn't it? So withdraw and reapply with some additional mitigation. At this stage, I don't have any concerns regarding public nuisance. Due to the activity, the nature, our main concerns were that this licensed premises might slide into the definition of a pub and become a drinking establishment, which I can see would raise concerns for local residents. However, the nature of that business isn't the case, and it's been stated as such in the application. So, based on that information and supporting controls, we don't have any issues or objections to the application. Thank you, Chair.
I apologise for the delay. In the original documentation, there was some information from environmental health, but I've got a new pack, which is the latest version,
yes.
And there isn't anything in there from environmental health. So I just wanted to double check that with the
Oh, right.
the
Apologies,
officer.
I don't know why that's the case. So, in terms of addressing public nuisance, would you like to know what our position is?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. So as with any application, we have concerns. We look at public nuisance objectively to see whether or not it's going to have be detriment to the amenity, be causing alarm, distress, and harassment to local residents, and potentially disturbing sleep, causing sleep deprivation. Having had a discussion with the applicant about what their objectives were, really, what they wanted to achieve from the licence, and our concerns of it slipping into a drinking establishment and potential problems associated with large consumptions of alcohol, antisocial behaviour. We had a long discussion. The fact it's a 24-seat establishment, table meals only, and continuing with the current hours of business, and only 2 evenings a month where it would be extended to 10 p.m. if I remember correctly, that he would put mitigation in for that, withdraw the application, put a new application in. So that was our position. There was this concern raised about privacy, and I completely understand that. So we did have a look at that situation as well, because I feel that there is, public nuisance. It could create problems, but in the visiting the cafe, which I think the members have done so themselves on a site visit, with the frosting, I think there is no invasion of privacy, lack of privacy. And I think possibly if that could be a condition, it mentioned it wasn't conditioned, but if that could be conditioned on the licence, I think that would support and address that issue and concern for local residents. Hopefully that answers the question, Chair.
Thank you. My mistake. It is actually in the latest version, page 98.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing that. Thank you. So any questions from my colleagues? Councillor Davis? Councillor Gregg?
No, Chair. Thank you.
I think I should move to the objector. Do you have any questions for the environmental health on what's been said?
Yeah, I just wanted to object at any point before this point to its change from retail to, selling coffee.
I did look at the plan reviews from retail to cafe.
I did put an application in, and it was online for the whole period, but then at the end of the application process I was contacted to be told that I didn't actually need it.
Right, okay. So planning legislation, right, that's...
Someone could have objected,
Right,
I actually understand where
Mr.
Ferret's coming through on
and
that.
we're lied into other uses currently, but yeah, I understand your issues with your concerns regarding the privacy, but I think that has been addressed, and so apologies if when I looked at the application, I thought it had been determined prior to this business by the previous owners, but I'll double check that.
There's an objection on there. On the actual original application, one person did object to its change of use, and I said it ran its course.
We have a right as residents of Kirklees to make our objections known and to put that argument forward. So yeah, it's completely understandable that your concerns, but I do feel that the applicant has addressed those issues. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, is it agreed, or can it be the case that we can put the condition in the licence about the frosting, because that obviously takes out most of my concern. If the frosting has to stay there as part of the licence, then that's gone. Whereas if it's not a condition, obviously it can be removed at any point. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify as well, Appendix E, page 99. Okay, so we've come to the end of the questions and representations, and this is an opportunity for everyone to sum up about what they've heard today, or anything they would like the panel to consider when making our decision. So I'm going to move first to the licensing officer, please. Sorry, can you turn your mic on, please?
Sorry. Chair, gone through the application. The application is for recorded music, and 2 occasions they wanted it from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and same with the alcohol as well. So the occasions can be a Thursday, Friday or Saturday. 2 objections were received, Chair, which have gone through. No planning permission. I consulted planning on that. The environmental health, they do want the conditions to be implemented. So it's your decision, Chair.
Thank you. I will then move to the applicant, please.
Just to sum up, I've held my personal licence for 20 years without a single incident involving a complaint or a police incident. I fully understand my role as a DPS. I completely mitigate any concerns people may have. I'm more than happy for the frosting to be conditional on the licence. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I changed my application to put a control on timings and the number of event nights to ensure someone else couldn't come in and try and run things differently, so this could escalate. I don't intend to open until 7 p.m. every night, but I don't think that is really relevant. I don't intend to have 2 events every single month, but again, I don't think that's really relevant. I want the flexibility to do a family supper evening once a week because my customers want me to do it. I want to be able to serve a glass of Prosecco with a bit of cake because my customers want me to do it. I want to do bistro evenings because my customers want me to do it. The village is devoid of these options as it stands, and I believe it takes people like myself with the courage and work ethic to create these opportunities and choice for people. There's been a suggestion this is about money for me. I've already grown the business to my financial target despite the warnings from our competition that there was no market in Denby Dale. I left my role as a managing director of a large event caterer and venue operator to open Gordon and Frank's with my sister-in-law. She left her job as a teacher. If we wanted to make a lot of money, we would increase our hours in my role and fill a void personally, but also what is, in the view of my customers, a void in Denby Dale. The team and I are working incredibly hard for a fraction of our old salaries, but we love it, and we wouldn't change anything.
Thank you. Objector, would you like to sum up?
I don't think I have any more to add. Just one point. The letter in support did suggest that it was vexatious to keep having a go. Perhaps things will change, but the applicant has already suggested he changes his mind based on what his customers are telling him, and perhaps if his customers start to tell him he needs to open longer, would that not change his mind? That's my final point. Thank you.
Well,
Okay.
that would require me to put another change in the licensing, which then could be objected and withdrawn.
Move over to environmental health.
Thank you. No objections based on the mitigation and the additional, if you can condition the frosting on the windows to provide privacy to neighbouring properties. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today and providing us with that information. So we will now consider what we've heard, call you in and let you know the outcome of that. Thank you everyone. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We have had an opportunity to discuss this, but obviously we need to be very conscious that whatever decision that we make is the right one, is specific, and something that isn't going to cause the applicant problems or the objector problems. So we need to be clear as a panel. So although we are looking at possibly granting the licence with condition about frosting, we need to be clear about where the frosting should be and the adequacy of the frosting. So is it, and this really is put to both the objector and the applicant in terms of workability. So is it the front facing? Is it the side facing? Is it both? Is the length of the frosting that's there at the moment, is that adequate enough? Does it need to go higher? Because my understanding is it only goes to a certain position on the windows.
For me personally, it's the one of the front-facing windows, the downhill one to the left as you're facing the entrance, and possibly the side one, because there is line of sight from the side one, although someone would have to be sat in that kind of angle, so not so much from the ground floor.
Ground floor.
Yeah.
Can I ask the applicant to respond to that? Is that doable?
The ground floor window to the left, as he's stating it, is already frosted to the level which, as far as I'm aware, fully blocks line of sight to Mr. Probel's house, and I'm happy for that to be I'll even measure it if you'd like me to and send it to you.
So the side window is already frosted. There's already frosting there.
Yes.
What about front facing?
That is the front. It's a front facing. I do apologise. It's the roadside front facing window on the left as you look at the building on the left hand side.
Thank you. I'm just going to consult with my colleagues. Just bear with me.
Can I just clarify? It is like a bay window, so there are 3 windows on the whole window. So the front facing and the side facing windows are all.
I think that's probably the best way to describe it. If it's a bay window, the front and the side, ground floor.
Yes, that's the best way to describe it.
Are there any more questions you'd like me to put, or any questions you've got?
Could I just confirm to ask the objector if the existing height of the frosting, and also there's existing frosting upstairs on the window in the one of the upstairs windows, in terms of the frosting there, is that something that is, do you plan to keep that there? Is that the intention? So, sorry, I've asked 2 questions there.
I think it's probably adequate. I would like there to be a specific length in the condition, if that's possible, so that it can gradually shrink back up, but I think where it is at the moment seems adequate.
Jones?
In the upstairs window as it is.
So if we're minded to suggest the ground floor and first floor frosting, would that present any problems for you?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll consider that further.
Can I just...
Just bear with me a second.
Sorry, just trying to maybe clarify. So then that could not have problems, but if we define and say the upper part of the window it might be smaller, that might then allow line of sight into the neighbour's property. So possibly we should specify that when the customer is sat at the bay window bench seats, raised table seats, that there isn't a line of sight into neighbouring property. Possibly once the windows have been replaced, maybe we do a site visit to confirm that is the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'll take advice from legal on that, but it may be that if we specify that it includes the front-facing and side-facing windows, that might be sufficient to cover every eventuality.
Sure.
But obviously, myself and my colleagues will discuss that with the legal. Thank you. Can I ask everybody to wait outside? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we have considered what we've heard today, considered all the information that's been provided, and based on all of those things, we have taken the decision to grant the licence with condition in terms of for the promotion of protection of children from harm, for public safety and the prevention of public nuisance, that is granted on condition that frosting is placed on all the windows, front-facing and side-facing. So thank you very much for everyone attending today. Appreciate your time. The decision will be sent out also in writing for you to the applicant. Okay, it's the end of the meeting. Thank you so much for joining.